You said earlier today that you have the telephone number of Mr. Brown Moti on your telephone.
That I have the cell phone number, yes.
Why?
It's because I've known him from 2017 and I've been using that number.
Why have you known him since 2017? And what do you use the number for?
Why didn't I?
Why have you known him since 2017 and what do you use the number for?
No, we're just talking...
About what?
Look, let me explain, Brown Moti. To me, there are more and more things that are coming out that I didn't know about Brown Moti. I knew him just like I got to know you. Nothing else. Just know you as a member of parliament. Then we go on. And then in the course of time, especially recently, I got to know things that I never got to know when there were no current problems. And which then put that question to say, so why would Brown say he's at Lusisi with me and create that impression when it's not? Why would he take a posture that whatever he says to other third parties, it is because he has had a discussion with me and so on?
Minister, that's not what I asked you. You must please listen more carefully to the questions, and it will get done so much more quickly. I asked, what do you talk to him about? Why do you need to use his cell phone number? Not about what he says about you. I'm not interested in what he says about you.
That is part of my answer. That's part of my answer. But I can go on to say we speak about ANC-related matters with him. But I know he likes throwing a lot of other things that have nothing to do with the ANC. That's when I normally don't answer him, or all the time don't answer him. Well, what has happened, which I know, is that when I issued directives, my view is that General Mchunu took a personal stand against what I did for his own reasons. That's why, among other things, even when General Kumal and others got arrested, Chief of Staff told me that he sent a message that gloves are off. As far as I'm concerned, the earlier response to what I'd done was personal, very, very personal. He took matters personal rather than as a police officer who would then engage openly. That's why there would be things like if he's clean and so on and all of those things. And when General Kumalo gets arrested, he then say, Chief of Staff must inform me that that gloves are off now. So in my view, all that has happened, the trigger on these matters that we find ourselves on here, the trigger is the directives. That's the first trigger. The second trigger is the arrest, where General Mchunu kind of take a personal posture into matters of subs, which are not necessarily his personal, is part of that.
On leave, Sabir is on suspension, that everyone's on leave or on holiday or suspended. And nothing's going to happen. And what must we do with all of this? The top structure of South African police are either on leave or in bed.
If I had my way, I wouldn't be on leave. I wouldn't even be here doing what I'm doing. I would be proceeding with the work that we're expected to do in subs so that people feel safer. So once these matters are aside, and the President decides on post these commissions, then we are quiet at the moment, and things are not the way they should be, like being on leave and so on.
I'm sorry, not the entity, the task team was legally dead. Why didn't you call for an investigation when you wrote the letter of the disbandment? Why wasn't the immediate investigation called? Immediately. And I mean immediately with immediate effect, not like the immediate misunderstanding. That immediately does not mean today. Like when I call a driver and I say, please pick me up immediately and expect it in a month. I mean with immediate effect, Minister. Because you knew that there was a problem, you knew that they were operating, in your own words, from 2022 till currently, not having a mandate to do that because they've never applied for the extension in your words. So they were applying for money, getting money approved to continue operating illegally in your words. Then why not call for an investigation immediately?
The truth of the matter is that I took action. Now, what action is a different matter. I believe that when I circled with those views, among others, that it may be an illegal, it may be illegally operating, and of course it may not be the most prudent way of spending the budget, and that there are people out there that are concerned internally and externally. Let me first take the action. What action? Disband this. I did say at some point, although I didn't complete what I was saying, that in mind, I started developing an idea that after stopping, after disbandment, or should I say, giving that directive to disband, I thought about a kind of inquiry, ministerial inquiry, so that we sit down, we discussed at length all these matters. And processes were continuing as I had sort of thought, although not on time frame, that there would be a discussion at some point, but having stopped this at some point. But things took a different turn because of the press briefing and all those matters leading to now. So there was that thinking that things would move the way they moved. And once you reach a particular point, you then sit down and say, let's then probe all these matters, and the probe must take this particular kind of format. I had that in mind.
Minister, I find it hard to believe that up until the media briefing that took place almost 7 months later, that you didn't have time to call for an investigation into something that you had all the information and applied your mind as you agreed to, that you went through the financials, that you went through the work study, and then up until the media briefing, you didn't have chance to say, let's investigate this. But Minister, I'll pause there.
I did say that I settled down for 3 days, 29, 30, and 31, finalized this, and said, let me do this. Instead of calling for an investigation, let me write directives. Probably you could see that it could have led to the same thing that we are talking about, but I felt, let me do it as and when it was fresh in my mind after settling that it is the right thing to do.
So on the 31st of December, everybody is in a jovial mood, you are at home, you are not even in any place, you are home, where everybody is happy, it's New Year's Eve, and you are troubled by the crime that is happening, you trying to think what needs to happen and all of that, and then you come to a conclusion that the crime intelligence post must be stopped. The advert of those posts must be stopped immediately and all of that. How does that help resolve your problem of crime? Because you are troubled by crime. How does stopping posts help you to fight this thing of crime?
No, posts were not going to be, they were going to be discussed at the first meeting as per directive with the National Commissioner. So he said stop until we discuss the matter, which would be in January. And this was the 31st. Now, it is indeed, as you say, everybody else was busy with New Year Eve
festivities.
And so on. Yeah. But I had not reached the end of processing what I had started and even discussed with the deputy ministers. And I wanted, when the year begins, when we go back, we go there full of purpose in terms of specific issues that I had identified. Remember, I had called a meeting, National Commissioner, Deputy Commissioners, and Provincial Commissioner, to say, I'm troubled, I'm being troubled, and I was honest. I was being troubled by these matters and so on, and everybody else in the country was troubled. So I was still processing up and down and so on. Why not discuss on the 28th? I was processing, I had not circled. And then I circle at home in a rural area. And then my mind focuses on one thing. We had been all over. I was deployed in Cape Town and in the Eastern Cape myself on Christmas days and all of those things. And I circled for the first time. Then this thing comes together. I start piecing things faster than I had done all the time. And the answer was, write a directive so that when the year begins, you are all in part focused on these matters because they're troubling a lot of people. And I'm honest that these matters, in my observation, are troubling a lot of people and the country as a whole.
But, Minister, there was nothing that was going to happen in between the 31st and the official return. I know the police don't close and all of that, but the business of our country at that time, meaning everybody's withdrawn. And there was nothing urgent that will force you on the 31st of December to say, this, I have to issue this letter now. Why not wait because now it looks very suspicious. It's like a tender that is being awarded on the 28th of December. You're like, why? Everybody's on holiday. Even the mindset is now different. And you now drag us into this serious business on the 31st of December. It doesn't make any business sense, really.
That would add... that would add on my side that what did immediate mean? I knew that there would be nobody who will, as a matter of today, call a meeting and convey the message and so on. But I wanted all of us to have it so that at the beginning of the year, we are able to say there was a directive written on the 31st. And remember, there's nothing untoward about a minister writing a directive on the 31st. It could have been a different directive altogether from this one. It could have said at the beginning of the year, employ people or facilitate or whatever. It could have been any directive.
So, Minister, Brown Moti is not your close associate, he's your comrade, who you have his phone and you communicate and all of that. What is the difference between a close associate and comrades? Are we not just playing with semantics? Because you denied that is your close associate, but you talk on the phone, you've got phone numbers of each other. What is the difference there between, because you denied in the committee on the 5th of March. And then now you agree, he's my comrade, I've known him from 2017. What is the difference?
I have so many people, just to put it simply.
No, even before you proceed, I heard you giving example with Honorable Bredenbach, like, saying, like, I know you, but we know you know her, the same way you know all of us. But you can't claim to be a comrade of Honorable Bredenbach or anything of that sort, but you know her. And you can't claim to have a number and you communicate constantly and all of that. But when we bring it to you that you are a close associate, you say, no, I'm not a close associate, I'm a comrade. That is playing with semantics.
No, not at all. I deny that strongly. It doesn't work like that. On my cell phone, I can't tell you offhand how many people I have as contacts, as written on the cell phone, names and surname and numbers. Some of the numbers, or many of the numbers, I've held for many years. Now, I'm not being asked questions why I keep those numbers, why I talk to those people, why I use those numbers. And I want to guess, and I'm merely taking a chance. You also have quite a lot of people on your cell phone who are there. Now, I don't know why I'm being asked to display is data sothando for Mkhotsi. Now that there are problems arising in that angle, people want you to confirm, come here and say, cha, nginesidata sothando luka Mkhotsi or sokwazana nomkhotsi. Alukho. And ayikho leyo contact ongayibeza oyibeke ku status of an associate, even referring to the dictionary what an associate is. The person who chose to say I'm Mkhotsi's associate would have consulted the dictionary and he knew what he was saying. And when I go there myself, I shouldn't be blamed for doing what they did. And then using that word. I'm using the same word, the same term. And I'm saying I'm not. And I'm saying, if everybody you call, just because they are on your cell phone, so you're all my associates. So let's bring everything to a standstill and say, all right, Mkhotsi is my associate. And I'm saying he is not my associate. I've never gone anywhere with him. Restaurant, sit down anywhere. It has never happened beyond just phoning. So I don't know why I would be associated to somebody that I'm saying myself. I'm not. If, for instance, somebody I know passes on, and I go to some funeral, and you find that in a funeral, there is somebody who is a fugitive of law, or is an alleged criminal or something like that, what do? You run away? You don't stay for the whole funeral. You stay. But are you not associating yourself with somebody alleged to be a criminal? If pictures of you come to the public knowledge that you were there at the funeral, surely you have something to. And there needs to be substance when you say this person is associated to this person. I don't have any substance. Mkhotsi phoned General Mkhwanazi a number of times, even congratulated him, according to him, for something. I've never heard that kind of message from Mkhotsi. I don't mean other things that you see, and they look like they are many. I mean, things like Lusikisiki, they don't exist. That thing doesn't exist.
No,
that thing in Cape Town doesn't exist.
Minister, no, I understand, but you can't say to us, I don't understand why you bring Mkhotsi here and all. We didn't bring Mkhotsi here. It's Mkhotsi who brought you. It's Mkhotsi who shared. As a minister of police, with crime intelligence, with all manner of investigating powers and all of that, you take no initiatives except to call me and say, no, I hear you got a hold of my letter. How did you get it? I say, I got it on social media, and you leave it at that. Because I'll tell you why. We are in this situation, amongst other things, because of this letter. And therefore, a serious effort should have been put in place. If we're taking this ministerial position serious, we should have put some serious investigation in place as to how does my letter find itself in Mkhotsi's hand, and Mkhotsi says it was in social media. How do we track that all the way to the original source? The only thing you know, you guys, is to retrieve seen once WhatsApps. You can't trace a letter that comes from your office. Because electronic documents are traceable, that they're from here to here to here. you make no effort. Even when you have now realized this thing has put us to where we are now. That you write a letter, we have no problem with that. We can debate the legality of it. Mokhodzi takes a letter, send a letter to Matlala. He says, that thing that was troubling you, we have dealt with it. Here's a copy of the letter. That alone should have told you, man, we're dealing with a serious syndicate here. I'm trying to resolve issues of the police, only to find that unwittingly or wittingly, I'm now find myself entangled in the cartels. Because Mokhodzi put you in the cartels, and that should have concerned the Minister of Police and say, we should be on top of this issue and find the person from my office, either the acting commissioner's office, either the commissioner's office, either the chief of staff, either the special advisor, or Ngabinde, my chief of staff. There must be a leakage there. And this leakage finds an expression in the hands of the cartels. That should have troubled the minister. As much as it's troubling us, ordinary people, because when that was heard, when General Mkhwanazi addressed the press conference, everybody said, no ways. Something ought to have been done. That's how South Africans felt. You should have felt somehow like that before, when you discover that your letter that deals with sensitive matter is now in the hands of criminal cartels. And therefore, I want to find out who did that.
Now, it's not true what you are asserting, that you didn't do anything. But I take it that you are asking a question. What is it that I did? Firstly, I did phone him to say, how did this happen? That's the first thing. And he explained to me as I've explained. And so I kept quiet about it. But when then matters came after 6 July, first thing I did, I called him. Oh, so you are all over, and I hear this and I hear that. And his response was, no, Minister, leave those matters with me. General Mkhwanazi is not speaking the truth. So I then said, fine, but on my own, I am investigating the matter, not through crime intelligence, through a private investigator. That is what I'm doing, and that matter is in progress. I don't want to say anything further because of the reasons that you are talking about. I am interested not just on how he landed the letters, but no, firstly, I share the concerns that Honorable Malema was articulating, and I share the concerns that you are articulating. That he rather has a conduct and a behavior as you relate. And I do confirm that I only came to activities now, and as you see, they are all close to each other in terms of, they are not related to something like, 2020. I never heard anything about to do about it, review that, because something I must take that, or I would take for granted, that I have somebody who are said to be, I indicate with you entirely, honorable member. And I don't know where this faction-like kind of situation in the top brass of subs, where it comes from. All I can say is that when I came, it seems to have been there already, not that it got created after I arrived. It may not have been showing, but it was there, seemingly. And that's why, among other things, I called a meeting with National Commissioner and Deputy National Commissioner. there could be some root cause in the past, whatever it is. Now, I have put on record that when National Commissioner briefed me about the investigation on Sibia, I supported it. It was not to prove that I'm not aligned to anyone, but it was a matter of principle that if he has done something unlawful, he needs to be pursued. He needs to be pursued. The same actually with regard to General Khan. When I got the report that said he is also being investigated from National Commissioner, I said I support that, because if he had done something wrong, he needed to be pursued. And therefore, I thought that that was demonstration enough, or partially a part of it when I came across that incident, that I had no special sympathy for anyone who found themselves on the wrong part of the law. It should take its course. So the perception, in fact, with National Commissioner, we discussed at some point that there was rumor that I wanted to remove General Kumal and put General Khan and all of that. And I said that that's pure rumor. There's never been anything like that. And I saw no reason why such a thing would happen. And therefore, I would dispel that notion. But I do want to also say there needs to be much more seriousness in police in doing their work. What has happened right from the beginning when we started working, I expressed confidence to the National Commissioner, and we worked well. I learn now that while he was on one hand working in the manner that he did up to the 27th on the disbandment, National Commissioner may not have been genuinely committed. And in my view, he just needed to come forward and say, Minister, you wrote a directive. I have matters to discuss with you. Or he would have written a letter pouring out his own views or his own feelings. Now, without him writing back to me separately just on this, and or engaging me on this, except through the process that I had indicated, I had no other way of knowing, getting to know that there were issues. Absolutely no other way. I was left with no option but to assume that we were together. Now, what do you do now that you know? It means that now that we know how that behavior, or that behavior is there needs to be a way of saying there should be one way of working. Don't turn right, or don't indicate right, and then turn left, because it doesn't help anyone to do so. If you indicate right, turn right. If you indicate left, indicate, I would do the same, so that we are able to proceed with the work that we are supposed to do. That is my thinking at the moment.
When you observe that in 2019, the task team reported 60 cases remaining under investigation, 60. By March 2021, the progress report, after giving 100 million, close to 100 million, and they were in existence for 18 months of operation, the number of cases then reported 18 months later, 100 million rand later, was 62 under investigation. No shift. Minister.
62 what? What did you say was the number of cases?
At first, they recorded 60 cases
Yes,
under investigation.
I have that in
After giving just under 100 million to them, and them being in existence in 18 months, the cases still under investigation was reported as 62. No shift. Minister, did they add value to SAPS in South Africa as a whole?
Well, despite those figures, which I see and acknowledge that you are quite critical. When you look at the expenditure, you look at the figures of cases with minor shifts upwards. You could have a perspective like that look, perhaps the value was quite less if you look at from that perspective. But generally, the view is that I share is that they added value at despite those figures, because I wasn't I mean, I'm not necessarily basing it on case by case and rand for rand, but generally the view which I share was that they did add value at the beginning.
I thought you testified that you applied your mind, and what brings you to a decision must make you consider the past events and makes you decide what will happen going forward. So I assumed that your reasoning, as I read your evidence, was that when you saw all these things, it is these facts that made you think there hasn't real value been added for SAPS South Africa as a country, not just provincially. And therefore, this steps has to be taken. So I'm going to take you further, Minister, as I read your evidence. When you consider by March 2021, the PKTT have secured 246 arrests across 117 cases. 246 arrests. However, of these, only 42 accused were successfully convicted. 64 charges were reported as withdrawn. So the number of charges withdrawn is more than the number of convictions. Minister, did they add value to SAPS South Africa as a whole, when you consider that fact and others?
Now, you are asking about values still. What's the question?
Minister, your submission to me was that your statement was that they're not adding value going forward, but they added value when you look back. Now we're looking back, and we are interrogating based on facts before us. Did they truly add value to the South African Police Service, South Africa as a whole?
Well, I have said generally, without or despite those calculations, and considering the fact that there was a downward trend, even though you could still poke some holes in terms of quality thereof, and say generally they did add value, and that was acknowledged across. but it's not without those points and factors that you are counting. Hence, where we are now, taking all those points into consideration, you do have concerns in terms of value.
So I put it to you, Minister, there's 2,711 staff members that DPCI, Hawks, is saying they need. Now, when you consider that, and you spend just under 100 million on a temporary unit, when there is a need to fund such a critical division, does it add value to South African SAPS as a whole?
There is a basis of an argument for a decreasing value. You may, as I answered you earlier, that yes, at the time, but as time went on, it clearly unsettles you and makes you a bit uncomfortable. That how you are spending resources may be skewed, and those figures that you are pointing out serves that particular purpose in terms of you looking at your distribution of resources within SAPS, and they increase your concern.
So the concern is increasing now.
Yes, they increase the concern and the need for a more rational kind of use of resources.
Minister, when you consider the budget allocation for laundry services alone for 12 months in 2022, for 110 members, it amounted to 4.4 million, just laundry. This translates to a calculated monthly amount per person, just for laundry, per person, 3,367 rand 73 cents. This figure is equivalent to the basic living cost of a normal South African, and that money is used on one member just for laundry. Has this added value to the South African police service in South Africa as a whole?
Yes, you would increasingly find yourself in some corner when, as you calculate the costs of the National Political Killings Task Team over time, and lending to, at a time when I wrote the directive, it was because of that. You continue to sit uncomfortably as you consider other factors. And as I say, the meeting starts, the issue starts in November, where I say I have these concerns about matters and all of that, but you don't have additional resources from Treasury. So you have to be on your own. And when you put it the way you're putting, you are more and more on the side of lesser and lesser value.
Minister, we've now gone through all the things that you've put before us that would serve as basis for writing a directive to say that these are the reasons why the political killings task team should be disbanded. You question whether or not it has added value, and we've looked into it retrospectively. But you say you only made the decision based on them no longer adding value. Now, if you discard everything that we've just spoken about, and you say to me that you have not based your decision on those facts, you're now going to have to make me understand the period that you are referring to when you say that you've used to make that decision. So you're talking futuristic. They're no longer adding value. But they did. And if you have not considered what I've put to you, what did you consider then to come to the conclusion that they should be disbanded?
Well, I'm saying if you consider everything that you have been saying, even though I didn't go to that long calculations, as you were saying, but generally what was being reflected and what was being observed is that, on one hand, political killings are decreasing, the cases are decreasing, but you are funding at the level, and you were bound to conclude that there is something disproportionate here. And then you go out of KZN, you look at nationally to say you are facing a serious problem all over, including in some other sections like detectives, DPCI, and so on. And therefore, you are bound to review how you use your budget.
Without bias, neutrally look at the facts and then determine, is there some credence, some value in what you are saying? And this is what I found. And what I found is that the evidence shows that when you measure the impact and the value added to South African police service, South Africa as a whole, there is very minimal value, except for high budgets that's not even on investigations, but rather spent on protection, laundry, SCTs, and all of that. So I've come to the conclusion, Minister, that based on the evidence, what you have written in your directive, based on what I've discovered on the evidence, was correct. Not just futuristically, but also looking back. There has been grave misuse. And I want to say and put it to you, Minister, I am not convinced by your testimony of your relationships with Mr. Brown Moti and Mr. Matlala. Your testimony there is very questionable. I'm not convinced by it. But when it comes to the reasons and the evidence before me for disbandment and immediate versus winding down, I saw with facts that I've just put to you why it would be justified. Don't worry, Minister, about your position. Don't even worry about public opinion. Stand by your conviction.
Your relationship with Mr. Brown Moti, the same individual who allegedly funded your January 8 guess, allegedly, be the reason a message was sent from him to Matlala, currently in CMAX, informing him that the task team had been disbanded. Do you not see the reasonable link that any ordinary person would see?
There is no request that I ever made to Brown Moti to organize any dinner for me anywhere in the Republic, not just Cape Town. What would have happened, he would have done that on his own. Whether it is funding from whoever, it was not necessarily as per my, or from a request from me. I never asked for any, I never diarized any, I never knew that was anything that was being done in my name. I never knew it. And I was not part of that. And I was not even in Cape Town in those days. All that I have learned, I've learned afterwards to say there was some dinners supposedly organized in my name. There were some people were flown in and accommodated, and I don't even know who those people are.
Is that not worrying, Minister? What did you do about it?
It's worrying. It's very worrying. It's similarly worrying when there is a WhatsApp, if it is true, of a WhatsApp to General Mkhwanazi saying, Minister has arrived in Lusikisik, when in fact I had arrived there. But then the message is made like Mkhotsi is there with me and is relating that information, when in fact it was not like that. When in fact it was not like that. So that is equally worrying. And many other instances that are similar. But those things, I imagine now, they had not been part of any other relation I've had with Mkhotsi, or rather I was not aware if he was doing such things. I'm very concerned about that.
Minister, what would be your response if I put it to you that the committee will hear testimony from former Minister Sele, that Kat Matlala told him that you and Brown Moti met with Kat Matlala to discuss a project which was your campaign for the ANC president or the deputy president?
If former Minister Pegicele would say at one point, I met Matlala, I met Mkhotsi, and discuss something, that would be a lie, an outright lie. If it were to happen, it would be a lie, even without me asking for evidence, even before I do that, because I know that has never happened. Directive didn't have anything to do with dockets. Dockets were not part of the directive. In the preliminary report, in the final report, or discussions thereof, then the issue of dockets would have come in, and then management comes and say, this is how we would then manage dockets. Common sense tells you that if there would have been a case or cases in court, the directive was not saying withdraw those cases just because you are closing. No, it doesn't. If you were chasing after a particular criminal, it didn't mean that. But as another example, you wouldn't. There were officers from other provinces. It also didn't mean that, or it wouldn't have meant that you tell them pack and go and just like that. Because ordinarily, in terms of simple logic, that would not have been literally practical. But there are many instances where the executive would take a decision. Maybe, let's just say, not in a hasty fashion as this one may look like. But as the executive, you do say, let's do this in 6 months, let's do this in 3 months. If you're an executive and we don't do that, I would say, I wish you good luck. Even though I didn't see him on the day because I was busy elsewhere, I only saw that afterwards. My first reaction was, what has happened? And then my mind raced back to fight back. Is it fight back? Is it taking this shape? But I couldn't help but recall that there had been that mention of a fight back. Now later, when General Khumalo got arrested together with other people, then there was also another expression, the gloves are off, that I must be told that gloves are off. And I had not arrested Khumalo and other officers. There had been, but the word was, tell minister to prevent the arrest of Khumalo, which told me that General Mkhwana's got or became aware before they actually got arrested. I was in Cape Town. So get minister to stop the arrest before the arrest happened. And then when that message didn't come, because he spoke to the chief of staff who was getting out of Cape Town, and he told that person, no, let's talk when I arrive in Johannesburg. And when he arrived in Johannesburg, that person who had been sent by General Mkhwana as alleged, then calls chief of staff to say, General Mkhwana says, leave it because General Khumalo has been arrested. And he said, you must tell Minister, gloves are off. So I'm looking at these things that are happening through the lens of those two expressions, and in between a lot of other things. And I'm looking at that as something that had an impact in changing the mind of the National Commissioner, who even went to court to say he thinks that, or in a sworn affidavit, that he has no problem with the directives and so on, but the how part, and he wrote it down in black and white, which is further evidence that he had no problem and so on. He would then turn later when he went to the commission and for the first time clarifying where he stands and so on. Okay. To be honest, I know of no instance that I could be accused of interfering, political interference for. And so it sounded very strange when I heard that, and I couldn't recall and whatever instance, but whatever may have happened before, I don't know. But as far as I'm concerned, because I'm currently there, I couldn't recall any instance. I listened to the instances that he was talking about, and I don't agree that that constitutes political interference.
It's written like that in his affidavit. It means immediately now. And of course, that position, that perspective, has to be our his understanding of that. In a way, it does coalesce with the understanding of the other two generals, which is Mkhwanazi and Masemula, that the intervention was with immediate effect. You can comment if you want to on this issue, but I'm just making you aware that your subordinates, the recipient of your instruction, if there's one thing that they are converging about, the three generals, the only thing I've heard that these ones are agreeing on is the fact that immediately means now.
I would contest that is their understanding. The first one is that General Masemula, I think he understood it well. It starts on the 3rd. It goes to the 22nd via a letter suggesting a phased approach in terms of managing the implementation of the directive. It goes to the meeting of the 6th, 5th, and then 6th, and then 27th, which had no immediate in that particular context. It was clear that this is his understanding. And I agreed with it. So if he came here to say immediate meant now, I would say immediately that, but that's not your understanding in terms of what you proposed. That's number one. Number two, I wouldn't know what was Sbia's thinking, because this thing is on two fronts. Immediate means now, but in terms of understanding that a decision has been taken, and then you start processes. But that in actual fact, you could say now, like switch off the light, I would say switch off the light now, you can stand up, and that's not the ordinary, that's not the thinking of an ordinary person in terms of what this thing would mean. Even now, we'll say, when are you going to Johannesburg? You say, I'm going to Johannesburg now, but you are going, the next thing you do, you go and wait in the airport for an hour or two. So I think let's be practical and ordinary and not seek to change the flow of things in the normal life. But when I wrote with a full understanding of what I meant. I'm taking a decision now, but let's meet on the 20th. Let's meet on the 20th, which itself was open. If anybody had a query, would have phoned, would have done all of that. But it's a, so I don't think we need to be fussy and rigid in terms of the meaning of immediate, even though it's applied. It has to be applied, like any other, I would say. And I even
Umuzoza la uzosinikeza lo bufakazi mhlambe noma uzosibriefa live as parliamentarian.
yes.
Ukuwahlangana nobaba uSibiya nathi ukushare ama notes enzosinika wona la.
Amanotsana.
Mhlambe into enzosikhuluma le briefing sayilelo. Le report enisinikeza yona. Nike nahlala mhlambe nathi mase ngibuza imibuzo mina ngizophendula kanje nabakubuze lo na uphendule kanje nami ngizophendula kanje.
Cha kaze sihlanu.
So kuza kanjani ukuthi eSouth Africa uwena nobaba uSibiya obhale ku statement sakhe uGeneral Sibiya. Ku statement sakhe ubhale ukuthi wamnikeze kukhona isinqumo esiphume lapha esithi must disband immediately, and he even says now yena faku now yena. But uyabuya yena uyajika futhi useshintsha immediately usefana nowakho immediately uthi hayi immediately akamini uthi valani manje umina later. So kuza kanjani ukuthi no2 ikhuluma into ecishe ukufana kanti eqaleni ubeyibhale kahle uhamba nathi ama South Africans siyafana ngenkulumo sekujika mase kufika la.
Ngikwazi ukuphendula okwenziwe yimina nokuphendula umbuzo obhekiswe kumina. Mawusubhekisa kuSibiya nakumina ngesikhathi esisodwa kusho ukuthi phela ngizophendulela yena.
Awungaphendula lokwakho ukuthi kube icoincidence ukuthi kufane noma mhlawumbe awunibona nami.
Anginakho la ukaSibiya, so angiboni ukuthi kufana kuphi. Nokwami kuphela njengamanje. Bengaze kulethe ukuthi nakho ukaSibiya nakho kwami.
Ngiyahluleka mphathi ngoba honorable chief whip uceda ukukhothela lento engikhulumela yona la manje awukusho ukuthi awunayo lento leyo kuyena awusho ukuthi awunayo kodwa uyiphendulile.
Cha uchazile uma ubumlalele kahle umhlonishwa uNtuli uthe uzongifundela izinto uzofika athi ku paragraph bani kunokuthi nokuthi ku paragraph bani wasenza kanjalo ngase ngiphendula into eqondile. Manje ke awenzanga nje ngoba enzile.
Ngixolisele lokho mhlawumbe ke ngikhulumela kulelo phuzu akufundele lona ngibona ukuthi angikakufundeli lona ngoba ucede ulifundile. So ngakho ngibuza ukuthi kulowo mbuzo lo obaba uSibiya athe kuye immediately means now, then later changes to into ayikhulumile ke wasethi usefana nowakho ku immediately later. Do you see the similarities and do you think it's a coincidence noma benihlangene nakhuluma?
Angiwaboni until kuze kube khona into okhuluma ngayo la kaSibiya nengikhuluma ngakho mina.
Ngicabanga ukuthi angeke si kuthiwa suyeke immediately ngathi uyakulimaza impela immediately. Awufuni ukuvuma. Bengiya la.
Awungilimazi mhlonishwa. Kodwa ngithi ngiyafakaza manje ke kufanele ngifakaze ngento mina self ngingabuye bese ngithatheka nje okushiwo umhlonishwa.
Do you think it's time for the changing of the guard? Is it necessary for the South African Police Service, let's say the top 10, to be audited and possibly replaced?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily put it exactly the way you put it, but I spoke earlier on about the need to overhaul certain aspects and sections of SAPS. There is a need just to refresh the organization. How you do it, it's a different matter, but that, because I think that sense of, a repetitive kind of stance on things is now at odds with what is expected either in Parliament or elsewhere, and therefore there is a need for some kind of action, whether it is in that form or in another form. But it's difficult, it's going to be more and more difficult to leave just things as they are and go on just like that.
Yes or no? You issued the immediate disbandment letter without an approved transition plan.
Well, you will excuse me, I can't use yes or no there, but I will say, yes, there was a directive, but it pointed at a preliminary report because I couldn't go to somebody and say,
Fair.
give me a transitional plan before I did that.
Yes or no, Minister, you met or communicated with Brown Moti or Kat Matlala in the 14 days surrounding the 31st of December?
I definitely didn't communicate with Mtlala, Mkhotsi, on the 31st. I haven't seen that.
Thank you, Minister. Yes or no, you will submit your devices, or you will be willing to submit your devices for independent forensic review?
I would be more than willing to do so, and there's absolutely no reason why I shouldn't be willing to do so.
Then the last two, Minister, yes or no, you personally appointed Cedric Nkabindi without security clearance at the time?
I can't say so because of what I said earlier on, that I may be making an error to answer you directly on that, because he may have, in terms of compliances that are required of him by the team that was handling his employment. I don't think they would have taken him without it, but I'm subject to confirmation or otherwise on this matter.
The last question, Honorable Minister, would be 2 months, and I'm taking from what you have said, 2 months after the decision has been taken, a briefing with the President happened. Am I correct? It might have been 2 months or less, because I remember you said something like February or March.
Yes.
Yeah. Had the President disagreed, because the record we have is that the President has agreed. Had the President disagreed, were you going to reverse the decision?
Definitely.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your answer.
And Karim.
Suleiman Karim.
Suleiman Karim, yeah. Karim is C-A-R-R-I-M.
It could be a person I may have met once or something like that.
Okay. Again, Minister, it crops up in a string of emails that goes in between Matlala, and Karim, and one of the, one of the WhatsApp says from Karim, "Good morning, Minister." This is dated, what's the date? 6th of May, 2025. "Good morning, Minister. Just received a call from our guy, who is a service provider for our health risk management project. He's got very serious concerns. Apparently, you gave a directive to scrutinize his contract, and while they at it, they must stall as much as they can to release purchase orders until you guys come up with something that can warrant the termination of the service." Then Karim says to Matlala, this is what he sent to you. And then Karim says to Matlala, "Then he called," referring to you calling him. Any comment on that?
Now, I think I remember receiving such a message, but I didn't respond to such a message.